Yeah, not bad. So, Spiral from the Book of Saw follows Chris Rock's Zeke Jones as he takes the lead on a police investigation where cops are getting killed off in a similar fashion to the way Jigsaw used to kill his victims. So he thinks it might be a copycat, and it follows him and some his partner and some other cops trying to figure out who's doing this and what's their motive and what's really going on here. So, just to start right off the bat with the plot, I thought the plot was pretty effective. It was simple, and the movie was very fast paced, and it was only like an hour and a half long. I thought the runtime, except for one little thing that I'll touch on later, was quite effective for what the movie was. There was no reason to really drag this on and overly convolute things like they've done with some of the other movies in the Saw franchise. So the short runtime with the simple but effective plot, I thought worked for the movie overall. And to keep going with that, this movie is a little bit different from the other Saw movies, but it's similar enough to where it feels like a Saw movie, but it doesn't feel like it's just copying the other Saw movies. It takes it in a fresh, new, and interesting direction, even though it's simple and we've seen things like this before. I thought it worked for kind of a reboot of the franchise and to take things in a new direction. To continue on that, the tone was very good. I thought there was a little bit of humor thrown in and there with Chris Rock's character, but overall, it was dark, it was gritty, it was violent, it was gory. I mean, there wasn't the constant violence and gore as there is in some of the other Saw movies, but the gore was there, and the grittiness and the intensity was there, again, especially with the fast pace. So the tone, I thought, was very effective as well, and it fits within the Saw franchise, I would say. And to keep going with that type of thing, what's the one thing we all want out of Saw movies? And that's the traps. I thought the traps were very effective. They weren't, near the top of the list as far as the franchise goes, but I thought they were pretty good. There were some pretty innovative and inventive traps that were gory and interesting, and there were only like three or four of them in this movie, not quite as many as some of the others in the franchise. Honestly, altogether, compared to the other Saw movies, this one tones down the gore as far as total amount of gore and traps and violence, but the ones that we do get are pretty gory and pretty violent and pretty effective, if you ask me. So yeah, I thought the traps were pretty well done in this one. Again, not quite upper echelon of the franchise, but they're pretty good for this movie, and I think it's a good way to kick off this new era of the Saw movies. So just to talk about the characters quick, Chris Rock is the main character. He's the one that gets the most development, even though I think there was a little bit missing there. There was a missed opportunity there, which I'll touch on in a second. Rock's performance, I thought, was overall pretty good. I was a little surprised. I went into this movie kind of mixed, kind of apprehensive about what his performance is going to be. I know him as a comedic guy. I was like, the trailers didn't quite sell me on him, and I was like, I don't know if this is the guy for this role. But watching the movie, he did a pretty good job. There's a couple instances where he overacted a little bit, and he does this kind of squinty face the entire time, which is a little bit much. But I thought he delivered the lines and the emotional moments pretty well, and so it's hard to complain about that. I think he did a pretty good job, and he surprised me a little bit. Continuing with the characters, the rest of them pretty one-dimensional. There is actually, so Samuel Jackson plays his father, Chris Rock's father, in this, and he is a former police chief, and they have kind of this tenuous relationship that they only tease. They don't explore it nearly as much as they could have, and I feel like that was one of the missed opportunities for this movie, is to fully explore the father-son relationship between them. So, while I said the runtime was good and it was fast-paced, they could have maybe fit a little more of that in there, and maybe extended the runtime a little bit so we felt that relationship a little more. It was something they only scratched the surface on, and I feel like they could have gone way deeper. So that was one of my big negatives, and there was a pretty big missed opportunity there. I would have liked to see more of that past and that dynamic. So continuing with the negatives, kind of more towards the end of the movie, I saw the final twist coming from a mile away. Now, I didn't see it right away. Like I said, Wrath of Man, as soon as the character showed up on screen, I thought that they're the villain. This time I thought maybe, but I wasn't sure until something happens at about the middle point of the movie, somewhere along the movie. Something happens, and if you've seen movies like this, you're going to pick up on the trope right away. was like, oh, okay, so this is where we're going here. And by the end, it happens. And you're like, yep, no, completely expected that. It was not that it was necessarily bad. I thought it was an interesting twist, but the thing they show you earlier in the movie completely gives it away, so it has less weight to it when it actually happens. But the villain's motivations I thought were pretty interesting, even though it's been done before. I thought it was effective for what the movie was. It just would have hit better if they hadn't telegraphed it earlier in the movie. And then continuing on with problems with the ending, the very ending of this movie is very, very odd. It ends very abruptly, and I'm kind of like, what? That's it? So I hope the reason they did that is because they're going to do a sequel or more sequels, and they're kind of using this as a starter for a new era of the Saw movies, and I really hope that's what they did. Based on how it ended, it certainly seems that way. Still, the ending was abrupt and felt weird to me, and just the ending overall kind of confused me a little bit, and there was one little plot line that I don't want to get into that was at the end, and kind of confused as to what happened there. It seemed like it was one thing, and then it turned out to be another thing. But yeah, the ending was odd. I hope it's because there's going to be a sequel. I don't like when they sequel bait like that, but I'm fine with it. I like Saw, so if we get more Saw movies, that's totally fine. But if this ending does not lead to more Saw movies, I'm going to be really pissed. I'm not going to be happy about that. So, weird ending, but I hope it's because we're going to go somewhere interesting in the future. So there you have it, guys. I think Spiral from the Book of Saw is a very enjoyable Saw movie. It's a nice way to kick off potentially a new era of Saw movies. I think it's a solid reboot. It's certainly flawed. It's got issues. It's predictable. The ending was weird. You saw the twist coming. But I think it was effective. I think it's not nearly as good as the first Saw movie. That's like way up here for me. The rest of them are not that great. So this could honestly, to me, be the second best in the franchise. And I hope it's a sign of good things to come. So I'm going to give Spiral from the Book of Saw 6.5 out of 10. All right, guys, did you see Spiral? If so, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to. Like this video. That really, really helps the channel. Follow me on my social media and all that stuff. And I'm going to be posting a lot more these days, so stick around. See you around.